going to begin now. Okay. Okay. The stream is live.
Are you saying something, ma?
I was going to ask you the name first before, but I already said I will go live.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Pastor's Preacher's Kids Talk Show. My name is Precious Bade, and I am delighted to be your host on the Preacher's Kids Talk Show. The Preacher's Kids Talk Show is a platform where Preacher's Kids, as the name implies, children of pastors, spiritual leaders, come to share insight on their life off the pulpit and on the pulpit. They are growing up as pastors' children and a lot of peculiarities that they face. Are we there? All right. So, welcome once again to Preacher's Kids Talk Show. Like I said earlier, my name is Praise Shugade, and I am delighted to be your host. Our guest on the very first episodes of the Preacher's Kids Talk Show is none other than Precious Okeni Ijesu Vivi, and she's going to be talking to us. We're going to be talking to her actually. She will equally be talking to us on the peculiarities she faced growing up as a pastor's kid and so many other things. If you have questions for her, you can also do well to drop them in the comment section. So Precious is um, she's a communicator. Precious is a communicator and she's equally a volunteer. She's a preacher's kid. So welcome to the show, Precious.
Thank you so much and good evening. I'm so happy to be on this show, and I want to trust that God is going to help us till the end. So, like you mentioned earlier, my name is Precious Okeni Jesivivi. I'm a communicator and I'm a volunteer as well. So it's nice to be here.
It's a pleasure to meet you. Okay, so let's just get started. I know you have a lot to share, and we equally have a lot of questions to ask you. So let's start with you just telling us what it was like growing up as a pastor's kid. What was it like for you growing up as? Were there peculiarities that you faced? Was it like growing up as every other normal kid? I don't think you'd even know what it's like to grow up as every other normal kid since you were born as a pastor's kid. But what was it like for you?
So growing up as a pastor's child is like being put on the spotlight without your consent. It's like
Okay.
being your life is already a model even before it started. You have eyes on you, people are focused on you, people
Yeah.
have put their eyes on you. So you growing up, you have to be very, 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 very careful. I mean extra careful because whatever step you
Mm.
take, people are watching. Even naturally as a Christian, as a child of God, your life is already a book to people. So let alone you being a pastor's child. So people are looking at you, whatever step it is you take, they will refer to whatever it is you do. And whatever you do is just like an extension of the life of your parents. Because whatever it is you are doing, they will say, oh, is what the parents taught them, that's what they are doing. And some people believe that whatever it is you do as a pastor's child is okay. Whatever it is you do, they can also do it. So it's just basically like your life is already a model before it even started. Even before you know it, before you realize it, you're already a model to people. So people are watching you, people are seeing what you are doing, and it's just basically being careful. You have to be careful about
Mm.
what you do, what you say, about what you wear, about where you go, about how you interact with people, about how you treat people, about how you accommodate people. Basically, your entire life, you have to be very careful about
Yeah.
it. So, I have seen that this is what my life as a pastor's child is about. You have to be very, very, very careful in whatever you do. You have to think not even twice. You have to think multiple times before you take whatever step it is you want to take. And growing up, I've also
Mm.
learned that you have to be careful with whatever you say. You have to think before you say whatever it is you want to say. You don't say it before you think it. So that whatever you say is what will be held on to. You say, oh, because by the
Yeah.
time that person begins in such a particular way, and they ask them that, why do you feel like they say, oh, our pastor's child is also doing the same, so why can't I do the same thing? So it's just basically being careful as a pastor's child. So I believe that that is, to an extent, that's what it is like for me growing up as a pastor's child. Basic, and also I'm also the first child of my parents. So you can imagine the kind of that
More
are on me,
responsibilities.
responsibilities. So more eyes, more focus, more carefulness. Everything was just extra being the first child, and even a girl, a daughter. So everything was extra. So I had to watch where I was going. I had to watch what I was saying. I had to watch what I was doing. I had to watch what I was eating as well. It's when it boils down to my eating. I had to be careful of what I ate and where I ate them. So I had to be careful of what I
Wow.
wore. Even up to now, I still have to be very careful of those things. I can't be carefree. I can't just I in fact I don't play anyhow. You don't have to play, you can't play anyhow. You
Mm.
have to be very careful. You have to keep yourself together. So that was what my life was growing up as a pastor's child.
Okay, thank you very much. So you mentioned that these things were done without your consent, right? You became a role model without your consent. Is it something you enjoyed?
I won't particularly say I enjoyed it, but growing up and realizing that this is the shoe I'm stepping into, I had no choice but to take it. So it's not like saying that I enjoyed it. Until you come to the realization of something, you won't say if you are enjoying it or not. So it's just as if you're just
Mm.
living and came into the realization that, okay, this is my life. You know, if you are growing up, you are being
Yeah.
tutored by your. So it was when I was still growing up, it
Yeah.
was like what my parents said, and this is what I have to do. But then until I came into
Okay.
the realization, this is what my life is about. This is what my life entails. So as at then, I couldn't say if I was enjoying it or not. So it just came to me naturally because I was being tutored. I had to follow the tutoring or the leading of my parents. So I won't say I particularly
Mm.
enjoyed it. I can't say I didn't enjoy it, but I saw it as a shoe I had to step into and I had to do it. So I'm not sure if I should say
Okay.
I enjoyed it or not.
Okay, thank you. So you did not enjoy it then, right? But how about now? Looking back now, can you say that you stepping into that shoe? There's a difference between, like you said, doing something because you were born into it, was a shoe you had to step into, and then growing up to realize that okay, this is not, is it that you just accepted it as your calling, as per what, if this is what God wants for me, no problem. But have you come to realize now that this is more than just whatever your parents said you should do or what you were born into?
So like I
So
told
what
you,
is it like for you right now?
okay, so right now, I would say the earlier tutoring I had have shaped first my realization, and then I've shaped how I've seen things. And then going out also, I've seen the world, I've seen people, I've seen things. So I want to say that maybe as at now, uh, ah, I really should not say it in the sense that maybe I'm enjoying it or not. But coming into the realization, I've already seen it that I'm not, there are some other pastors' children that I'm sorry to say, but there are some other pastors' children that they do not care. But I've already come
Okay.
into the realization and I've cared about my image and whatever it is that I'm putting out there. So I have
Mm.
already come into the realization that this is my life. I'm not being careful about it. I'm being careful about it that, oh, this is also a calling on its own, that you being a pastor's child is already a calling on its own, and it's a
Mm.
life that is being emulated by others. So you have to live a life according to God's will. You have to live a life according to God's commandment. So it's like whether it is pleasing or it is not pleasing, it is God's call. So it is not about sometimes it's not about what I enjoy, but it is about what God wants me to do. It is about what God has called me to do. That you are a pastor's child, you are a life to be worthy of emulation. Your life should be what people are looking up to. So it is no longer about whether I enjoy it or not, but it is about what is God saying
Yeah.
about my life, what is it that God is calling me to do. So it is now about what God is saying about me. So it is no longer,
Mm.
job you just take on for passion. This is what you are doing because God has ordained you. Even in the Bible it says that he told Jeremiah, he told Joshua, he said, before I called you or before I even formed you, I have known you. So even before God formed me, he had already known that, okay, this person is going to be a pastor's child. This is where I want you to go. So I've already come to that realization that this is already a goal for me. God has known me even before he formed me, even before I was conceived, even before I was born. So it is basically me living in God's calling. So that is what it is for me.
Wow, thank you very much. So for you, this is more of a calling, and it's not just about what you were born into. Thank you very much. So how do you balance your identity as a pastor's kid or as a preacher's kid with your own personal interests? Because like you said, you're already a role model to some persons, right? And then, but you have personal interests, you have personal things you'd want to do. How do you balance? Now you've said it's a calling. So how do you balance your calling as a pastor's child with your own personal interests?
And so I would say that I've not had any personal interest that has to conflict with my identity as a pastor's child. If there is anything
Okay.
that is going to make my identity as a pastor's child different from my personal interest, then there is a conflict already. So my personal interests have to align with me being a pastor's child. So I can't say my personal interest is being a stripper. It is already conflicting to what my calling is. I can't say that my personal interest is me being in the club. It is already
Yeah.
conflicting with my identity. So my identity and my personal interest are already intertwined. They are no longer
Mm,
separate. They are no longer
yeah.
separate. They are done already. So whatever, like I said earlier, it's already a calling. It's already a calling by God. So if my calling is already conflicting with my personal interest, then what is that identity? It is no longer my identity. I'm already having different identities. So my identity as a pastor's child, it doesn't have to conflict with my personal interest. They are already intertwined. So whatever interest it is that I'm having, because receiving instructions from God is also part of that calling. So my personal interest must not differ from what God's instruction is for my life. So basically, it's just like having a personal life and my identity as a pastor's child, having them together as one. So they are not
Mm.
different. So they are conflicting. None is conflicting each other. They are not different from each other. So they are already one, and they do not even have to I don't have to have a personal interest that has to go against my identity as a pastor's child.
Okay, so let me ask you this. At what point, it's actually like a two or three in one question, but I'll start with one. At what point did you realize that being a pastor's child was a calling for you?
I would say that was when I the realization that I'm already being a role model to people, because there were instances whereby people would say, "Oh, I'm doing this because Precious did this," or "This is safe to do because Precious did this." So,
Yeah.
uh, and then I was doing things that at the end of the day, I realized that people were seeing it. People were seeing what I was doing. So my life was already in the flow of people. People were already seeing whatever it is I was doing. So when some instances begin to come together, you have the first instance, the second, the third. So you begin to also sit down and rethink and recheck and re-examine that, oh, whatever it is I'm doing, people are seeing it. So that was when the realization began to come in that it's like my life is already on this spotlight. People are already seeing what I am doing. So I had to be careful when I had that realization that it's like people are already seeing what I'm doing. People can see it. People are already following my footsteps. people are already saying that if Precious can do this, then I can also do it. So it was when I came into the realization that I knew that, oh, being a pastor's child is already a calling for me.
Yeah. Okay, so this the next question, right? I said I have like a two-in-one question. After, before you came to the realization that this was a calling, right? Did you have conflicting interests before then? Because you said that you would not have, or you do not have any interest that conflicts your calling as a pastor's child. But before you got to realize that this was a calling, did you have conflicting interests?
I would say when I did come into realization, I have not, probably then, I have not discovered purpose. So, or should I say, I have not really discovered, because the realization came quite early, I would say. It came quite
Oh,
early, it came very, very early. So, I wouldn't say
do you
that
mind
as
sharing?
at then,
At what age did the realization come?
uh, very early, I can't really pinpoint the exact age, but I would say it came very early because
All right.
I was in the choir as early as probably 8. So I wouldn't say that. Um, Let me say it was around that age. So it came very, very early for me. So it came very, and I
Okay,
mentioned earlier
so
that I'm the first daughter. So I was already in the spotlight being the first child already. So it came very, very early. So I won't say that I had any personal interest that was conflicting with, or probably I should say I can't remember if there was any interest of mine that conflicted with my identity as being a pastor's child.
okay, so did you, as being the first child, do you think you had more responsibility? Because I believe that for many pastors' children, especially the first children, they do not only have the responsibility of being role models to people out there, they also are responsible for being a role model to their siblings coming after them. So it's like a double calling for them. Do you feel the same way?
I feel the same way because even without you being a pastor's child, if you are a first child,
Yeah.
whether a son or daughter, you should know that you have a whole lot of responsibilities. So now imagine you being a pastor's child, it is a whole lot of responsibilities. You have to look out for your siblings, you also have to be on the lookout for people in the church, you have to be careful, you have to take on responsibilities even in school or wherever it is you find
Yeah.
yourself. So it will be a double, or it was even more than double responsibility. So it was wherever you find yourself, you have to take on responsibility.
Wow. All right. Thank you so much for sharing. You're literally wearing many hats right now. More grace to you. Okay. So, at what point did you make the decision to follow Christ on your own, aside just being a pastor's kid? I mean, being a pastor's kid does not guarantee automatic salvation. So, at what point did you get saved?
Okay, I would say that was year 2020. Yes, that was year 2020. That was during the lockdown period. Uh, I've been in, okay, like we all know, I was born into Christ. I was born into a Christian family, and though I wouldn't particularly say I was wayward when I was growing up, but then I came to
Mm,
know Christ for myself in 2020, and that was during the lockdown period when everybody was at home. During that period was when people, everybody was at home, people had a lot to do and nothing to do. So during that period I was home, I came back from school. I think I just gained admission 2019. Then I came back home. Then so during that period like that, I was home, and then I there was this particular group I joined on WhatsApp. So it was a
okay.
Bible believing platform, and that was where we were. I followed up on series of sessions they had on that platform, and then there was one
Mm,
particular day that there was a session we had which was very touching, and it was then I decided that no, I can't live my life. I'm not living my life because I shouldn't live my life because I'm a pastor's child. I should live my life because
Yeah.
I really want to know Jesus for myself. I shouldn't just say because I was born into it. I came to the realization that I shouldn't just say because I'm a pastor's child, then probably I'm automatically born again, or my life is already pleasing to God, or I'm already living a life that is worthy. But I had to know Christ for myself. So I don't want to live in self-justification that because I'm a pastor's child, oh, my life
Yeah.
is good already. So I came to know Christ for myself. Not that I didn't know him before, but that was when
Mm.
I proposed. It was purposely, it was intentional. That year, it was very, very intentional for me. It was very purposeful for me that even the people that the conveners or yeah, I should say the conveners of that platform do not even know that something like that happened. But between myself and God, we knew that there was a shift and there was a rededication. Yes, I would say there was a
Mm.
rededication, and I came to know Christ for my own self. I became purified. I became more dedicated, and that yes, that was year 2020.
Wow, very good. Thank you very much. So, how do you manage expectations that people have of you as a pastor's child? I understand that being a pastor's child myself, I understand that many times some of these expectations are actually very unrealistic because sometimes people are asking you to do the things that they are equally not doing. And that's even not the
Mhm.
point because sometimes what they expect you to do is right, whether or not they are doing it right. But then there are some
Yes.
expectations that are unrealistic. They are just quite extreme. Like, does it have to be like this? I don't know if you understand. So, how do you handle such expectations? How have you been able to handle it so far? Or have you had such expectations?
Okay, I would say so far the kind of expectations I've had are not what are beyond what I should naturally should be doing. So
Okay.
I would say that people have watched my life to the extent that they've, like you said, they've believed that this is the right thing for me to do, even if they are not doing it. You are very, very correct. That even if they, because sometimes I've sat down and wondered that you people know that this thing is wrong and you correct
Yeah.
me doing it. But you yourself, are you doing it? So, but then when you have already realized that this is my life, this is my identity, and I should live right for people to also emulate.
Yeah.
So I would, whatever expectations of me that they have, I should live up to it because everybody knows what is right. If we are being truthful to ourselves, everybody knows what is right.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
would say that the to me, I won't say that the expectations are unrealistic. Okay, let me say for instance, there was a particular time that I was in school. I just finished last year. So that period I was in school. Then I came home briefly for holiday. And I've been in the choir, like I mentioned earlier, since like when I was 8. So I'm in the choir, and to the glory of God, God has been helping me so far. Then I that day I had a clash with our church drummer. So we were preparing for a program, and we had choir rehearsal that day. We were gathered together and we had choir rehearsal. So when we finished, they were asking that who had things to say. So I stood
Mm.
up and I mentioned that, oh, this is our church drummer, that this person, he does this, he does that, he does this, he does that, and it's not really, really good coming from the fact that this person doesn't come to rehearsals and you are always complaining, you are always nagging, and you are always looking for loopholes, yet you won't come to our rehearsals and all of that. So I was mentioning it. So that was when the particular person started to raise his voice, and because naturally I'm somebody who doesn't talk all the time. I would say I'm more introverted. So I'm not somebody who talks all the time. So but whenever it is I talk, I always try to drive home my point that my voice must be heard, and I must say whatever it is that is on my mind. I must say it to the place. So when the person began to raise his voice, I was like, why are you raising your voice? You should know that I'm not somebody who complains. So for me to have voiced out, then you should know that this thing you have been doing is wrong. So when he was
Mm.
trying to raise his voice, I was also trying to also drive my own point home for him that this is what I am saying and you have to listen to me. So at that point, we were already having clashing conversation that people were
Okay.
being to what we were saying. So the person was very, very, very annoyed that day. And myself, I was also pissed that I am saying what you are doing that is wrong. And you are raising your voice at me. You are telling me that I shouldn't talk. Where is it being done? So at the end of the day,
Mm.
my parents had to step in to the matter that okay, so that the matter had to die down because people were our attention was being drawn to us already. So at the end of the day, everybody went home. Then when we got home, my parents began to talk to me that oh, what I did was bad. And I told them that you should know that I'm somebody that doesn't talk all the time. But when I decide
Yeah.
to say something, so when I decide to say something, you should know that I have seen a lot. I have my evidences. I'm not somebody that talks without evidence. I have my evidence. I have seen there are a lot of scenarios I've been by for me to have made or to have raised a point. So they said that my parents had to make me realize that oh, you're a pastor's child. They wouldn't say that this person is wrong. They will say that you raised your voice at that person, you are
Yeah.
the wrong person, that I should apologize to the person when I see him. So the next church activity we were having, I saw him, then I went to meet him and I apologized to him that oh, I'm sorry for the other day for what happened and all of that. So that was when the man now told me that he was very, very, very sad about what happened. That I may not know, but he looks so much up to me. He looks up to me so much that my life is already a model, that whatever it is I
Mm.
say, whatever it is I do, that he is looking at it, and not only himself, others are also looking at it. So it was then I realized that okay, are you people trying to tell me that I shouldn't talk or I shouldn't complain
Because
or
yeah.
I shouldn't say what it is that I am seeing? So it was like, people are looking up to me. That not only people, that he himself, because this person I'm saying is a married man, is a family man. So for a family man to
Wow.
be telling me, looking up to me, so you should realize how much attention is being placed on me. So it was
Yeah.
like, that is because I don't know how highly people have placed me. That people have he
Mm.
himself he has so highly. So it was then I also realized that oh, there is so much attention on me, and people are having so much expectation of me that since then I've tried to caution myself that even if I have something, a pressing issue within me, I should
Yeah.
know how to place that talk. I
Communicating.
should if I know something is going to bring about is going to bring about chaos or whatever, is going to bring about
Mm.
heated argument, I should know how I'm going to place
Yeah.
it. I
That's
may
what we
not
say.
speak to that person. I may talk to someone else, probably my parents or another person that I know that is elderly that can come into that situation. So
Yeah.
since then, I've also told myself that if I know that something like this is going to be heated, is going to bring about heated arguments, I should caution myself that people are looking. People have so much. Since then, I knew
Okay.
that people have so much expectations from me. So
Yeah, thank you very much. You've actually answered all of these questions very, I mean, it's amazing getting to hear your story and the things you've shared so far. Thank you. So let's wrap this up very quickly. If you were to talk to parents, and when I say parents, I mean preachers, because if there's a preacher's kid, then there has to be a preacher in the picture. So, I mean, this platform is for preachers' kids to air their opinions and all. But I've come to realize that many times for preachers' kids, there are certain things they grew up with that they wish they were able to tell their parents. So you're not talking to your parents now, but if you were to talk to preachers or pastors, spiritual leaders who have children, what is one thing that you think they can improve on? One thing that affects their children that they probably do not know about? Because I feel that sometimes there's this communication gap between parents and their children for in some cases. It may not be that way in your case, but what is that one thing that you would like to talk about and you'd like them to just look into?
okay, so you've mentioned one of the things which is communication gap. And I think that the reason why
Okay.
there is a communication gap is because parents have not come to the realization that there is a thin line between being a disciplinarian and being a strict parent.
Okay.
Preachers are cross the line from being a disciplinarian to being strict and over authoritative. When you are being authoritative, your children cannot talk to you. Your children can't come
Yeah.
to you free. Your children will not be free with you. So when your children are not
Yeah.
free with you, there will be a communication gap. They won't be able to
Okay. So
talk to
finally,
you.
what?
Okay, I can hear you.
Okay. Okay. Sorry. So, what advice do you have for preachers' kids out there who are still trying to find their footing?
Okay. For preachers' kids, I would say that first, they should know God for themselves. First, when you know God for yourself, every other thing will begin to fall in place. Every other thing will begin to align when you know God for yourself. So you wouldn't see what you are doing that you are being forced into it. You will know that this
Yeah.
is a call. Okay, you will know that, yes, I'm being born without my consent as the pastor's child, but then this is this is God's orchestration. It is a blueprint from God. So know
Mm-hmm.
God for yourself first. And when you know God for yourself and you know your purpose and you know that this is your calling, every other thing will begin to fall into place.
Thank you very much. It's been quite an interesting discourse with you. Thank you for all that you shared so far. I pray that God gives you more grace for the journey ahead because it's still a very long journey. Thank you once
Mm,
again.
I'm so glad to be part of
All
this.
right.
And I
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay,
thank
so
you.
we've come to the end of this particular episode of Preacher's Kids Talk Show. Preacher's Kids Talk Show airs every third Thursdays, and we would have guests from time to time. So do well to tune in and just join the conversation, drop comments, drop questions if you have any, and we'll be glad to respond to them. Thank you once again for joining us. God bless you.